So I met my wife in the Hilltop Mall in Kearney when I was in college. I used to work at a snack place, and the little snack place was called Munchville. And my wife worked a couple doors down from there at a snack place. She wasn't even a girlfriend at the time. She was just a pretty girl that she would come down and buy red licorice and get refills of pop. And I was always eager to see her. She was color in a black and white world. She still is. That was fall of 1988, and by April we were engaged. By the following September, we were married. So we got married September of 1989, and in the spring of 1991, we moved to Kansas. I bought a business, a franchise DJ business, and we worked in the wedding industry. We had 2 of our children born in Hays, Kansas, and 2 were born in Manhattan, Kansas later. And the spread of them were 13, 11, 7, and then Ellie was born. And Ellie wasn't what we expected. Ellie has Down syndrome, and she had an open heart at 4 months old. And during open heart, as a man, I wanted control. I liked answers, and you don't have answers when the doctors are working on your child. Shortly after that, our oldest was diagnosed at 13 years old with Crohn's disease. So severe that his 6 medicines that he was on, 19 pills a day, they didn't work. Every 8 weeks he went in for a chemo drug, and my wife sat with him. And it was a very expensive drug every 8 weeks. He's still on that. Shortly after that, our youngest at 10 was diagnosed with the same chronic disease, Crohn's. And over the course of our time with him, he had developed pancreatitis twice because of a drug side effect. You don't know how to pray. You don't know how to cope. You don't know how to help. You're just helpless. And I think that's something I struggled with at that time, especially since I had control of so many things in my life before. We had a thriving business. We had moved the business 3 times in Kansas. We moved our house twice. We moved from Hays to Manhattan, Kansas, and Manhattan out to St. George, Kansas. Lived in a rural community. I was involved with Chamber of Commerce. I led scouts. I was a Cub Scout leader, a Boy Scout leader. Volunteered to teach Sunday school, was on church council. Oh, and I served as president of the school board. I stayed busy with a lot of things, and I said yes to a lot of things. And in hindsight, I was saying no to my family. I was saying no to my wife. It was a crutch. It was no different than another kind of drug in many ways. I had an opportunity to move to Omaha from Kansas, where I had my business, and I could work for the franchisor, so I could double dip. Get up there. It's not what I expect. We uprooted our life, our lifestyle, our friends, and 2.5 years later, I was training the CEO's younger brother to replace me. So here I was in Omaha with no job, and I was 45, and I was at a job fair with college kids looking for work. Sold our house, moved into a townhome to just make ends meet. God is the author of life. We don't put a comma where he puts a period and vice versa. We let him write, and we just trust him. For me, it was recognizing that the person I worship most was the man in the mirror that can cause challenges in your marriage. It really leads to disrespect. We had a son that finished high school in Kansas, his senior year. So essentially, he moved out at 16. It was another stress on the marriage. We had children with medical issues. We moved up here. I lost a job. I lost my dad. I lost my home. And I finally was at rock bottom. This isn't fair. This isn't what I expected. This isn't what I deserve. I've worked hard. I've volunteered. I've done all these good things. But God wanted me to be at the end of me so he could build me the way he wanted me. And there were many times where I was on my knees and in tears and fearful for, will I have my family? Will I have my marriage? I just remembered Dad's words of letting him be the author of life. And I remembered that forgiveness is important. And I was showing a forgiving heart. And I started trying to live that way a little bit more. And I'm still a work in progress with pride and with ego and with stuff. But with those steps, my wife and I really worked really, really hard on loving through things. We found a way to work through that for almost 11 months before I landed at a job that's just fantastic. It's just perfect. God knew what he was doing. And through that process, he needed me to be humbled. So one of the things I learned through my 28 years now of marriage has been that In the end, for me, it's I can't change anyone else. And only through God's power can I change me. And once I allow God to change me, then I can impact my relationship with others through love and through forgiveness and through God's mercy and through His grace. We can't change our circumstances. What we can do, though, is lean on Christ through them. My name is Mark Kuecker, and this is where my story meets his.